It's time for Fake Questions, Real Answers. There's things I want to talk about, but don't want to wait for you to ask me. Dear Colin, what do you make of Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher exchanging barbs on recruiting and the name, image, likeness situation? You know, they say this about Hollywood. There are certain positions in Hollywood where you need to get along with people, like actors and actresses. If you have a long career, you'll be on lots of projects, working with lots of people. You're already viewed as important, highly compensated, and often a star. It's really important to get along with people. But when it comes to directors, you're dealing with the studio, budgets, and bottom lines. Sometimes you need 20-25% a-hole, like Quentin Tarantino or James Cameron. Different sensibilities for people on the same movie set. That's the way I look at college football coaches. In the NFL, you're not recruiting players. In college, you are. You've got to be a salesman and get along with dad and mom and the son. You've got to deal with boosters and administrators. I've said this before. Every great college football coach in my life has like 20-25% a-hole. It doesn't mean they're corrupted people or horrible people, but Saban and Jimbo Fisher have really healthy egos, got into a war of words publicly because that's what guys with egos do. They're both really exceptional, Saban the best ever. But college football coaches are very, very rare. In the NBA, it's a players' league. In the NFL, it's a quarterback league. College football is a coach's sport, and it's the only sport that often makes money on an entire campus. You're the state's highest paid employer. Being a little authoritative, bulldozing certain administrators, donors, it's almost a commodity. Dear Colin, you were vacationing in Italy. Tom Brady, while you were there, signed a massive contract, $35 million a year at Fox. What do you make of it? Why, thank you. Italy was amazing. I was your typical Italian love-making machine. Espresso, wine, pizza. My lucky wife. What do I make of it? Listen, there's a lot of really good football analysts out there. Louis Riddick, he's been on our podcast. Excellent. Chris Collinsworth, excellent. Tom Brady's different. Tom Brady is a brand. Fox is paying him a lot of money. I don't know the specific amount, but it's a lot. It is, however, layered. He is not being paid just to be a football analyst. If you could pick one person in America to tie yourself to in regards to football, there's an argument to be made. It's Tom Brady with the NFL. He comes across, by superstar standards, as kind of wholesome, clean, family guy, loves football, totally committed to things he loves. Listen, Brady will allow you to charge more for every commercial on a football broadcast. He will be used, I imagine, with advertisers, things we call in the advertising community the upfronts. Tom Brady will drive revenue, just like he drove television ratings as a player. I don't know how good he'll be. I was told this by somebody who would know. Brady is good at everything he wants to be good at, and it's really important for him to be a good broadcaster. But that's why you pay him a lot of money. He changes the temperature in every room he's in, and he's probably the best football ambassador in a country of 335 million people. There's no guarantee Brady will be great. Joe Montana was kind of a dud as an analyst. Drew Brees was okay, not great, certainly. But Peyton Manning, Eli Manning are good. And Brady, I think, like the Mannings, has a pretty keen sense of humor and is hyper-competitive. I think he'll be really strong. Dear Colin, what do you make of Phil Mickelson not playing in the PGA Championship, even though he's the defending champ? Well, I think golf is better when Phil Mickelson plays. There are very few golfers in the world that have a brand. Tiger, Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson. What I do think is interesting, though, is if you're a public figure long enough in America, as a politician, a CEO, or an athlete, you will eventually step in it. I'm always interested, once you do, what kind of support do you have? We always thought of Tiger Woods as sort of a solo act, but when he got into personal trouble, his circle may be tight, but many people were there to support him. Tiger Woods made a lot of friends on the tour. He was fun, a guy's guy, and made everybody richer. When Phil Mickelson got into trouble with his comments about the PGA Tour being a dictatorship, crickets. He withdrew from the Masters. He withdrew from this PGA Championship. Where are his allies? Where are his friends? Where's his support system? It tells you a lot about a man, not when he steps in it. We all do as public figures. But do you have any support when you do? Phil doesn't. Dear Colin, what do you make of the USFL ratings on NBC and Fox? They're getting like 1 million viewers a game. Yes, they are. What's interesting about the USFL is players, young men, have virtually no power. And that's a good thing. Now, for all the wokesters on the internet, we want to enable and empower athletes at all costs. But when you're starting up a business, a professional league, and the WNBA did this about 20 years ago, you cannot give players power. What you need is capital, timing, luck, and the ability to pivot off stuff that works and stuff that doesn't work. The USFL isn't going to make a ton of money. And for the USFL to survive, it needs 2 years of being able to pivot off stuff that immediately doesn't work. You know, they did a Harvard business study years ago, and when we think of Silicon Valley, we think of all the founders as young, brilliant people, 22, 23 years old. That's actually not true. The average age of founders in Silicon Valley isn't 25 or 35. It's actually 45. Because if 25-year-olds are running your company, you're probably going to be in trouble. You need experience. You need people who have been there before. The USFL will work because the athletes in this situation have little to no power and no flexibility. That's the only way a new sports league will work. For the record, the last sports league that was created that became something was the UFC. What do we often hear? Dana White has all the power. Dear Colin, people are saying these NBA playoffs are just like the 1970s NBA. That's the weakest decade, at least the perception is, of the sport. Actually, it's funny. There are certain things that we say are bad or trouble that really aren't. I'll give you an example. Air travel. All I ever see is media people complaining about it, people taking shots at it, ugly videos on the internet of people throwing tantrums on planes. Let's be honest, I just flew from 12 hours in the air from Europe across the Atlantic, across America to LAX. I was served 2 meals. I saw a movie, an excellent documentary, had half a bottle of wine, some excellent chocolates. I got slippers and was able to sleep 2 hours as well. I get treated better on an airline than I do at home. They were checking on me every 10 minutes. That's how I feel about the 1970s NBA. It got a bad reputation, but it gave us Dr. J and Walt Frazier and Jerry West playing alongside Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Walton, and my Sonics won a championship. It got such a bad reputation. It was a wonderful time. The problem with the league was the 70s, the revenue was terrible, and the commissioner was bad as well. Once they got that right, the NBA was off and running. But the 1970s NBA gets a bad rap like our airlines. I grew up on it. I have wonderful memories. There were many memorable stars. We just didn't have any dynasties, and that's okay too.